Everyone, welcome to today's session where we are going to look at this well-known poem by William Shakespeare titled The Seven Ages of Man. This poem is actually an extract from Shakespeare's comedy As You Like It, and this extract is taken from scene 7th of Act 2 where the character Jack is outlining the different stages of human life. This character Jack has a philosophical bent of life, and in a very philosophical tone, he is pondering over or he is ruminating over the stages of life. So let's begin the discussion. And before I read the text or before we begin the textual analysis, I would like to discuss briefly this concept, four ages of man or the stages of man. And when Shakespeare wrote it, in Shakespeare's time, this topic, four ages of man, was very beaten up topic. Then what makes Shakespeare's version apart from other concepts or other theories? Then it is this, that Shakespeare divided man's life into seven ages or stages, because before it, in the League of Aristotle, who proposed four ages of man, it was common for writers and philosophers to divide life into three or four ages, and it is also very much similar in with the system given in the Indian philosophy, which is also famous as Ashram Dharma, where man's life was divided into four stages or ages, namely Brahmacharya ashram, Grihastha ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, Sannyasa ashram. Now, after talking about these all the different concepts or aspects of stages or ages of life, let's begin the reading of the poem. As I have told you that this poem is a philosophical reflection on human's life and our role in it. So let's begin the reading of poem. I am reading out it to you. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merrily players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being seven ages. The language is very simple, and I hope that you have understood, if not completely, but a bit. So let's elaborate it more. Pay attention to the first line. All the world's a stage. In this line, Shakespeare is comparing world to a stage. As on the stage or in theater, actors come and go. Actors come like from the entrance they come, and they enact their roles by whatever roles are assigned to them, or whatever role is assigned to them, they enact that, and then they takes exit from the stage. In the similar way, this world is also just like a stage, and this life is a drama. And in this drama of life, man takes entry by taking birth, and he enacts different roles, as Shakespeare is saying that these all roles which he plays, which a man plays during his lifetime, they are total seven, as his acts being seven ages. So he in the similar way, like actors in on the stage of life, man also plays his different acts, and then he takes exit when he dies. And one man, so I hope that you have understood the first three lines. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merrily players. They have their exits and their entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being seven ages. Now there is again an analogy, a comparison to play, as we see that in any play, in play, there is a division of acts. A play is divided into acts. In the similar way, life, which is a play, which is in which we enact many roles, it is also divided into different acts or ages that are total seven. So, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being seven ages. So now let's begin begin to understand what Shakespeare is suggesting and how he is describing these 7 stages of man's life. The first one is at first the infant. So the first one is of the stage of infancy, and this is also the stage of dependency, in which child is very much dependent on his guardians or his custodians. So I'm reading the lines. At first the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. So as the child has no other way to call out for his need and for help, then cries. So he cries. Mewling means cry in a very weak voice, weakly crying, and puking is vomiting. So this is what the state or the look of infancy stage, when a child or when a man who is an infant, he mews and pukes in the nurse's arms, which is a very much dependent stage. The next one, and here before we embark on this next stage, I would like to add that here you have maybe you have noticed that the speaker finds a fault, that in this stage man is very much dependent on others. And in the similar way, while reading all the stages, you will find that the speaker seems to find defects or faults in every stage of life, which is very much reflecting the personality of the speaker. And who is the speaker here? The speaker is Jack. Jack is the character who is very much pessimistic, and who is pessimistic and who is not so positive about life, and who feels that life is not worthwhile, and there is no happiness in life. So that's why it is also reflecting the personality of the speaker. So now, keeping or bearing this thing in mind, now let's begin our reading with this second stage, which is of a whining schoolboy. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face. Now when the infant grows enough to go to school, then his parents or custodians, what they do, they prepare him, or they make preparations to send him to school, to educate him in the ways of the worlds. But the infant, who is very much now habitual, or who has seen only love and adoration in his immediate environment, he shows very much reluctancy. He looks very much reluctant to this new change. He doesn't accept it very happily or very heartily. So what he does, when parents sends him to school, what he does, he cries, whines, and he throws tantrums in order to protest, and in order to show his protest, that why is he being separated from his parents. But the parents, they know what is good for their ward. They send him to school in order to educate him. So how they prepare him, they dress him, parents dress the man who is in his stage of this second stage of schoolboy. They dress him in school uniform, and they give him satchel. Satchel is a bag. Usually it is, especially it is used for carrying books. So they give him satchel and made him ready to go to school, and he's and they make him ready, and that's why his face becomes very shining. He looks very he becomes ready with a very shining face in the morning. But he creeps like a snail, as he is not much interested in going to school. So he walks very very slowly. So here his movement or his walk is compared to like creeping. He is just creeping, and like whom? Like snail, as he is very much unwilling to go to school. I'm reading this second stage again. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. So now let's move on to the next stage. And then the lover. So now this next stage is, as Shakespeare calls it, of lover, in which this schoolboy, is educated youth, is in his height of teenage, as now when adolescence sets in. And as you know, adolescence is a stage when it is a stage of many physical and psychological developments, and it is a stage between the childhood and maturity. So it is a teenage. And how Shakespeare is describing this stage, which he calls third stage. In this stage, the man takes the role of a lover, and he is sighing, as in the words of Shakespeare, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. Now, as in this stage, he feels infatuated, or he becomes infatuated to any beautiful face, and in that emotion, he sets on love. And when he sets on love, and when he faces any frustration in love matters, then he is impelled to sigh, like sigh. And since the dejected sighs are so much intense, just like furnace, and as they are quite frequent and hot, that's why Shakespeare has compared the sighs, the dejected sighs of a lover, like furnace. And he also writes and sings sad songs in the beauty, or in the admiration of the beauty of his beloved. So this is with a woeful ballad made to his mistress eyebrow. Now here we can take one more meaning from here, that here, along with the in a very mocking tone, he is mocking the lover's expressions when he is in his teenage. Along with it, he is Shakespeare is also taking a dig to the poet of his ages, his contemporaries, who were also engaged in composing the poems, which were also full of admiration of the various aspects of the face of their beloveds. So that's why it can also be noticed here that Shakespeare is also taking a jibe at his contemporaries in these lines. Then the next stage is of a soldier, then a soldier, and it is a stage when a tender lover transforms into a soldier. Now here, soldier, what it means, that soldiers in the battlefield of life, as soldiers take oaths, and as it is clear in the next line, let me read it. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths, and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor. Now, as a soldier takes up oaths, in the similar way, a man also takes up many strange oaths of honor, and he follows them. And how he looks, what is his appearance? He takes the appearance. He looks like a bearded, like the panther or leopard, in order to show that he is full of vigor, courageous, and never he takes back, never to back down, like a kind of attitude. And that's why he's bearded like the pard. And then jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. Now in this state, the person, a man, is so much conscious of his name, his good name and high fame, honor and reputation. He is so much sensitive for these words or these adjectives like honor, reputation, that he doesn't hesitate to engage, to be engaged in quarrel or fight to prove his point, to save his honor. And this reputation, as Shakespeare has put it, that this reputation is, though this reputation is transitory, bubble, transitory and momentary, but to uphold his reputation, or to save this reputation which is momentary and transitory, he even doesn't hesitate to risk his life. He prefers death than to lose his honor or reputation. So such is the stage of soldier, a soldier like stage of man. And the next stage is that when man goes into middle age, where he can be seen as passing on judgments and directing the people law and order, where he finds himself knowledgeable enough to impart knowledge. And the second line, in fair round belly with good capon lined. And this phrase, in fair round belly, suggests his love for food. And this line also directs our attention, or we can say that through this line Shakespeare directs our attention to the excuse me, to the corrupt judges of his era, who used to accept bribes, and the bribe was or the bribes were the baskets of chickens and capons, which were also, and these judges were also called basket judges. So in this way, here there is a very stark, or we can say very sharp commentary by Shakespeare on those judges, where on judiciary we can say that, and then the justice in fair round belly with good capon lined. Capon is a fattened chicken. And the next line, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut. And since he is very much mature now, it is the age of maturity, his eyes became severe, and he maintains his physical appearance by having a formal fashionable beard, and full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part, and how he enacts this part, that since he is now full of wisdom, and in order to show his wisdom he quotes many modern examples, many sayings and quotes. So in this way he plays his part by imparting knowledge to the people around him. Then there's a next sixth stage or age, which shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon. Now this sixth stage is a stage when a middle-aged man enters into the age of senility. And this stage also can be said that this is a stage when man progressively we can say man progressively goes towards or becomes lean, and he's very weak. It is an entrance into the old age, as old age weakens the senses as he becomes lean. And Pantaloon is a old fool or old buffoon. So in his ragged slippers, as he wears ragged slippers in this stage, so he looks like a old buffoon or old fool. When we read his whole appearance, then this adjective or this phrase for him becomes more relevant, that how he looks like an old fool with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, as his senses becomes loose, and his stature is very much lanky and weak now. So his eyesight also becomes very weak, so he wears very corrective glasses, and there is a pouch on side. We can see a pouch on side to keep items in it. His youthful hose is a close or tight fitting trouser or breeches, trousers or breeches. So once the youthful hose, which used to be very close fitting and tight fitting, it becomes very loose, because now once the frame, the soldier like frame, which used to be very stout and robust, now it has become very lanky and weak and full of wrinkles. So it has become so lean that once tight fitting trouser has become so loose, and very humorously or ridiculously Shakespeare is commenting here that well saved a world too wide, which means to say that the hose which used to be tight fitting, and now due to the lean and bony structure of the old man, it has many, that bony structure leaves many space in the hose. It is not, it is tight fitting, it is ill fitted now. For his shrunk shank, because it has become, it is full of wrinkles and it has lost its that tightness, it is ill fitted now. And his big manly voice, turning again toward childish treble pipes and whistles in his sound. And once the voice which used to be very roaring and manly when he was soldier, and then the authoritative judge, the voice of the judge, it also becomes slow, it also reduces in its pitch and tone, so, and volume, turning again toward childish, and his voice becomes very childlike, it becomes very shrill like voice which is very childlike. Turning again toward childish treble, childlike voice, very shrill, full, and pipes and whistles in his sound, and as he talks there is a whistle in his voice. uh, Such is the state, this sixth stage, in which man becomes very lean, and he begins to lose his old vigor and that strength. And then last scene of all, now this is the state which is the seventh stage, and when that lean old fool like man is slowly progressing towards his death. And last scene of all, as Shakespeare has said, last scene of all, and as he is going towards finality of his death, that ends this strange eventful history, when man is going to play the last role of his life, and the drama of his life is going to an end, is second childishness and mere oblivion. And it is a return of second childishness, as we have, if you remember, we have noticed that this the first stage. If you have noticed the first stage, in which I have told you that this stage is a stage of dependency, and in the old age also man feels the need of he feels the requirement and need of care, and he becomes dependent, as due to the extreme senility and old age, he loses his all the cognitive functions. That's why it is a second childishness, he again become dependent on others, and a mere oblivion. And it is a state when he becomes forgetful, he usually forgets the things, and also forgotten, and he is also forgotten by people. So it is a state, it is a stage of mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. Here this word sans means without, and it is a state when man loses everything, loses teeth, and as he fails to recognize others because of his weak eyesight, he becomes without eyesight, without any taste, without anything or everything. That means he is very much near to his death, and finally he takes exit from this drama of life by the event of death. So this is the poem in which we see, or we have observed, this soliloquy by the character Jack, where he has shown us the journey from infancy to infirmity through these 7 stages of life. Now if we look at technical aspect and form of this poem, then to begin with rhyme, if we see the rhyme scheme of this poem, then you will notice that there is no rhyme scheme in this poem. As you know that we find rhyme scheme by noticing or by observing the similar the repetition of the similar sound patterns at the last positions, at the last syllables of the lines. But here if you notice, as the text is displayed on the screen, you can see there is no match between the syllables which at the last positions, at the last of the lines. So there is no rhyme scheme in this poem. And rhythm, if we talk about rhythm, then also we will observe that throughout the poem we will not find any particular rhythmic pattern. So this poem or this dialogue has not been composed in any fixed rhyme scheme or rhythmic pattern. And if you want to know more about these terms, rhyme and rhythm, then I encourage you to watch my one of the previous lectures on these specific topics, rhyme and rhythm, the link of which I am giving in the description below. And let's have a quick look on figures of speech employed in this poem. And before I begin, metaphor, antithesis, simile, as you know, if you have watched my earlier sessions, I have already discussed these topics as they are prescribed in your syllabus. So I recommend you that you should attend, or you should watch those sessions, which is in the series of literary terms and figures of speech. So let's begin with the metaphor. And as you know, metaphor makes a comparison between two unlike things without the use of like or as. So here in this line, all the words are stage. World is directly compared to stage without any use of world is like a stage. No, there is a direct comparison. So, and if you remember the second line, that all men and women are merely players. So man and women are compared to players and world to stage. So there is an employment of metaphor in this statement. And next one is antithesis. In short, if I tell you about antithesis, an antithesis makes, or antithesis in antithesis, there is a pair of statement or images which are in reverse with each other. So here in this statement, these two words, exits and entrances, are opposite to each other, are reverse in each other, reverse to each other. So here is an antithesis. Then last one is simile. And I hope that you know that simile is a comparison between two dissimilar things with the use of like or as. And in these three statements, there is a simile: creeping like snail, sighing like a furnace, burdened like a part. So this is what the technical and stylistic devices of this poem employed by William Shakespeare. And that's all for today. Thank you for listening.